So the very first sound is the chords, which sound like this. And then for the sound that I used, I'm using Tau Sampler for my sampler. And then the one shot I used is in here. Let me find it for you. This is from MW's Bloom One Shot Kit. This is the linear key. And I've been making my one shots and stuff with like samplers and all that. So it's just a better way for me to like layer sounds and stuff because in this sampler you can layer like four sounds at once. But I just use this one sound. All that I'm really doing in here is I'm just increasing the attack and then increasing my release and sustain. And then there's this stretch mode I'm using. It's called Intel, which is pretty much the exact same setting as if you go your into your regular FL one-shot settings and you just change your stretch mode to stretch. It's pretty much what I'm doing there, but in Tau Sampler. And this is just a new way I'm using to process my one-shots and stuff. But for the effects, I have this EQ. I'm just taking out some of the low end and then I'm making the one-shot mono, as you can see there. But that's the chords. And then there are other sets of chords in here which happen near the end of the sample, and it sounds like this. This features the same exact progression as the first set of chords. And let me find this. Let me find the chord. Let me see. Okay, so the one shot I'm using is from Dyap's monthly kits. This is a synth pad from the kit from his June monthly kit. And I didn't change too much in here, just squared out the envelope by increasing the hole all the way. And then the only thing I'm doing in here is I'm changing the portamento option on. And then I have my slide amount set to maybe about like 50% or so. But from here, for my effects, I have this EQ, cutting out some of the lows, and then I'm making the one-shot mono. But there's that. It just adds a bit of variation for the sample. And then I'm gonna break down this piano later, but going into the next sound, we're gonna go into the bass, which sounds like this. So this bass is one of Coop the Truth's one-shot kits, I believe. Yes, this is the all me bass, and I'm not doing too much in here. Here's my envelope settings and all that, but for my effects, I have an EQ, just barely taking out some of the low end, and then I'm just making the bass mono. So there's the bass, and then I guess I can show you the MIDI too. So here's this. So there's the MIDI for that. And then the next sound is this lead, which sounds like this. The second one right here. And this lead, if I can find it, this lead, I am using this one shot from Dyap. This is from Dyap and Guyzzi's pedalboard library, and this is the milk one shot right here. What I'm doing in here is I'm actually pitching it down 3 octaves. I'm pitching it down 2 octaves in here, and then I'm going into here and I'm pitching it one more octave. So there's that. I'm changing the mode to stretch so that everything plays at the same length. Here's my envelope settings. I'm just increasing the attack and then the hold all the way. And then I'm increasing some of the release a bit. And then here I have this monophonic mode on. And then going into my effects, I'm just having this fast distortion, which I believe this is the fuzz preset. It doesn't really show what preset it is when I open it up, but I'm pretty sure it's the fuzz preset. And I'm making the lead mono, and it's a pretty drastic difference. So I'm gonna play it once more, and then I'm gonna play it without the distortion. So it's a pretty drastic difference. I use this distortion on almost everything I make now, but yeah. So the next sound is this piano, which starts here because I wanted to have some variation within the sample, but then the real piano and stuff happens right here. So here's what that sounds like. For the piano I'm using Piano V2 from Arturia, and I'm using this preset right here. I don't think I changed anything within here, but when it comes to the effects, I do have the Zen over. I'm on the Cedar Studio preset right here. I have a good Hertz full compressor here to just add some more fullness for the piano. And then I have this EQ cutting off the low end, some of the mid range, and then I'm just boosting some of the highs, and then I'm making the piano monos before. But one thing that I would really suggest is definitely have like an introduction to like your new section, and that's what this little part right here is for. I'm gonna solo it. And then that just gets introduced for the rest of the piano section that happens later. But it just makes everything a little bit more connected and stuff. So yeah. And then the next sound is this texture, which sounds like this. So this texture, I'm using this one shot. Let me see what kit this is. This is from the Bloom one shot kit once again by MW. I didn't change anything really here, just squaring out the envelope once more, turning on the monophonic mode on, just so I can have like a more of a lead sound. And then I use this chain, which I use the effects that are on. So going down one by one, we have a loop rater here. Here's everything for that. I have a halftime, just setting the time to 1/4. And then I have a sound shifter to pitch my sound back up an octave. And then I have this isotope trash just to add some more distortion on it. I'm using the boxed in preset. This is something that I've used in the beginning of my samples too, and I just really like how it sounds. It just adds a lot of really cool character to it. And then I'm just using an EQ to clean up some frequencies, cutting out some of the low end, and then taking out some of the high end. And then I'm making the texture mono, as you can see here. And what I did was I rendered this outright. So once I recorded it, I made, um, I'm pretty sure I just duplicated the audio, right? And then I made it unique. And then now we have this second set of texture, which is just pitched down an octave. And when I use the first audio, I actually pitched this one down 2 octaves. So as a result, this one's pitched up an octave, but it's actually pitched down. I'm not sure. That didn't make any sense. Just forget what I said, my bad. But but this one's pitched up an octave and then this one isn't. So I'll hear you can hear the layered sounds right here. And then further in the sample, I have another little texture in here that's just using the same sound as before. And then I'm using the same chain. And here's what that sounds like. And that's just one of the random phrases and stuff I did within the recording. So just wanted to spice it up a little bit. Yeah, and the only thing I'm doing in here is I'm just taking this, I'm just duplicating it over, I'm making it unique. And then this one's getting pitched down 3 octaves. So there's a lot of octaves going on in this texture, but that's something that I like to do is I like to like duplicate something and then I like to layer it by having one texture that's like 1 octave up and then the second one that's just like its regular pitch. So just adds a little bit more character, a little bit more fullness to your sample and you'll yeah. So once I have these ideas set, I'm just chopping it up as you can see here, just creating some separation between each note. So there's that. And then I have a couple of more chops here. Just makes everything feel a lot more rhythmic. And when you're making textures and stuff, always be sure to do that because it could definitely take your samples to another level. So there is there's that texture. So the next one is the second texture, which sounds like this. So this sound, I believe, comes from Hades and Mute's Fairy Adventures kit. Let me see. Yes, it is. This is the Fairy Adventures kit by Hades and Mute. What I'm doing here is I'm pitching the texture down 1 octave, and then from there I'm pitching it up 1 semitone to fit within the key of the sample. And then I have my stretch mode set to stretch, and then nothing else is in here but I for the effects. I have this producer arrow enhancer to make my texture mono, and then I'm using Pancake to pan that mono signal left and right. And the reason why I do this is because it will actually create a lot more room when you're panning your stuff left and right. Because when I make samples, okay, I have a lot of stuff going on, as you can see. And this just helps a lot when it comes to how much space there is in a sample, because of course you want to make sure that a producer has enough room to work with, and then that producer needs to have enough room for the artist to get on it. So it's very important just to make sure everything is just super cleaned up and everything. And that's how I do it sometimes. I just make some stuff mono, as you can see here, and I just pan it left and right, and it just creates some space, and it allows for other sounds to breathe. So that's why I do that sometimes. If I'm ever using Pancake, I'm always going to make it mono just so I have that more clean sound. And for the next effect, I have this towel filter, and then I have an EQ cutting out some of the low end, and that's that texture. I just chopped it up a little bit to add a bit more rhythm and all that, and then it just repeats for the next like 8 bars or so. And well, yeah, from there, um, let me see. This next texture is this one right here, which sounds like this. This is a very little subtle hit, and this is from Drixie's Intergalactic Library. What I'm doing here is I'm pitching it down an octave, and I'm pitching it down an additional 10 semitones. So overall, 22 semitones down. And from here, I have the mode set to stretch, and then I have an EQ cutting out some low end and then some of the mid range. I'm making it mono, you can see here, and then I'm panning this texture to the left, and just add a little bit more depth and everything. It kind of complements this right here, which I'll play. It kind of complements it just a little bit, just makes it sound a bit more interesting. And well, that's that's that little texture. So this other sound is this lead sounding soundscape. I'm not sure what it is, but here's what this sounds like. So here, this is, I believe, a sound from Hue plus Saturation by MW, and I have the mode set to stretch. As always, I'm just time stretching it. I don't think it's exactly on time. I just kind of stretched it and then I just chopped it up, as you can see here. But before I go into how I chopped it up and everything, let's just break down this one little effect. It's an EQ, cutting out some lows and highs, and then I'm making the texture mono. And then what I'm doing here is, as you can see in my channel rack, I have 5 different versions of them, and that's just me just duplicating them, clicking on this waveform icon, and then me pressing make unique. And I'm just doing this, and every time I am making it unique, I am individually pitch correcting every single sound so that way this texture sounds good within the rest of the arrangement and stuff like that. So I do this a lot, as you can see, like I guess like within here, within these textures and everything else, right? And a lot of my samples, I do this exact same thing where I will like brute force my sounds to make it sound good. And and I'm gonna play it once more. Here's what it sounds like without the EQ. It's pretty drastic. So here we go. So lots of distortion. It really complements with all of the other distorted elements within the sample. And well, yeah, that's that's this sound. And the next sound is this percussion loop, which sounds like this. So this percussion loop, I believe, I'm not sure which kit this came from actually. This is from one of Damask's upcoming one-shot kits. He's working on this really crazy one-shot kit that I've been honored to try out. And I gotta say, when this comes out, it's gonna be a crazy kit. Like, I'm gonna highly vouch for this, but it's not out yet, so I can't tell you where to cop or like anything, but I have my mode set to auto because the perk loops are already auto stretched and everything like that. But everything in this kit's super fire. Stay tuned for when it drops. But for my effects, I have this EQ cutting out some of the low end, and then I'm making the percussion loop mono, so you can see here. And that's everything for the sounds in the sample. And the one more thing I want to mention is the master. So the master has a lot of effects that completely changes how the sample sounds. And the very first one is the sketch cassette, which I turned off for the sake of this video. It was making this really random noise that I thought was pretty annoying. So I just turned it off, but the only thing I did was turn on this compression switch on. And then I had this Goodhertz can opener to make the sample more full. And then the biggest change is lossy. This kind of like lowers the quality of your sample, and I believe it really fit with it because there was a lot of like high end for it, and what Lossy does also is it takes out some of those highs, and it just makes everything a bit more tame. And what I have next is this sound shifter. I'm pitching the sample up 7 semitones, so there's that. And then I have this S1 imager. I'm just increasing the width to make my sample wider, and then I have this EQ, just boosting some of the highs to make it more crisp. And then I have this tau filter, which emulates this emulates the effect of like chopping your samples like in Fruity Slicer. So there's that. And then I have this fruity limiter, which is just making the sample louder. And with all of that, that is the sample. Um, I hope you guys learned something from this, and I hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you for watching. Appreciate you.